They stated, "Be grateful we still permit you to visit. Allow that to resonate for a moment. Permit you to visit." This was the house for which I had scrimped and saved, the home where I had raised my children. The walls held every Christmas morning, every scraped knee I had bandaged, and every tear I had dried. My name is Patricia Whitmore, and I am 72 years old. For the past 3 years, I have been residing in a modest apartment in Portland, Oregon, while my daughter Veronica and her husband Keith occupy my four-bedroom craftsman home on Maple Street, which my late husband Daniel and I purchased in 1978. However, before I explain how I reclaimed what was rightfully mine, it is essential to understand how I lost it in the first place. Hello, everyone. Please share in the comments where you are watching from today. I find great comfort in knowing that I am not alone in this. Somewhere out there, someone understands what it is like when the children for whom you sacrificed everything become strangers who see you as nothing more than an inconvenience. This story begins 5 years ago, although the seeds of this situation were planted long before that. Daniel passed away in March of 2020 at the age of 67 due to a massive heart attack while working in our garden. We had been married for 46 years. He was my entire world. When he left, the silence in our home became unbearable. Veronica was our only child. We had hoped for more children, but after several miscarriages, we poured all our love into her, providing dance lessons, piano lessons, private school, and college tuition. Daniel worked double shifts at the shipping yard for 15 years to afford her education, while I took night jobs as a seamstress, working during the day at the library. She graduated debt-free, married Keith, a corporate attorney, and they built what appeared to be a perfect life in Seattle, complete with 2 children, Brandon and Ashley, whom I adored from the moment they were born. After Daniel's death, the loneliness was crushing. The house felt too large, too quiet, and too filled with memories. I would find myself setting 2 plates at dinner, momentarily forgetting that I was alone. One evening in late 2020, Veronica called me. "Mom, Keith and I have been discussing your situation. We are concerned about you being alone in that big house. What if you fell or something happened, and no one knew for days?" Her concern felt genuine, warming something that had grown cold inside me. "We have a proposal," she continued. "Keith's firm is opening a new office in Portland. We could move back, live in your house, and help you with everything. You wouldn't need to worry about maintenance, yard work, or being alone. Plus, Brandon and Ashley would have the opportunity to spend quality time with their grandmother." In hindsight, I should have questioned why she did not suggest that I move in with them, or why my house was suddenly the solution. However, I was grieving, lonely, and desperate to feel needed again. "We will cover all the utilities and expenses," Keith added when he joined the call. "You can simply live there and enjoy your grandchildren. We will take care of everything else." It sounded like a blessing, but turned out to be a trap. They moved in during January of 2021, and initially, everything seemed wonderful. Brandon, then 14, would sit with me in the evenings as I shared stories about his grandfather. Ashley, 12, helped me bake cookies using Daniel's mother's recipes. Veronica appeared genuinely happy to be home, and Keith was polite, even charming. However, small changes began to occur. "Mom, we need to use the master bedroom," Veronica said about 2 weeks after their arrival. "Keith has chronic back issues, and your bed has that adjustable base. You understand, don't you?" I was told that the guest room had been rearranged and was now quite cozy, though it was half the size and faced a busy street rather than the tranquil garden Daniel had tended for decades. I convinced myself it was temporary and that family required compromise. Next came the living room. "Patricia, the kids need space for their gaming setup," Keith explained one Saturday morning. "We will move some of your furniture to the basement temporarily until we figure out a better arrangement." My grandmother's rocking chair was taken down those stairs, along with the console table that Daniel had built by hand, and our wedding photo in its silver frame, which was replaced by a massive television I never wanted. "It's their home too, Mom," Veronica said when I protested. "We all have to adjust." But it was not their home. It was mine. They were supposed to be living with me, not erasing me. The kitchen was next. My cooking schedule, maintained for 50 years, was disrupted. Keith preferred dinner at 8 instead of 6, while Veronica put my cookware in storage and replaced it with her modern sets. My meticulously organized shelves were rearranged without my consent, and I found myself feeling like a visitor in my own home. I would wake up to find Keith in Daniel's home office, which he had converted into his workspace without discussion, installing a lock on the door under the pretense of confidential client files. I would come downstairs to find my favorite chair occupied, the television blaring shows I had not chosen, and conversations halting when I entered the room. "Mom, we're having a family discussion," Veronica would say, emphasizing family in a way that excluded me. 6 months in, I realized I was eating dinner alone more often than not. They would feed the kids earlier, and then Keith and Veronica would have date nights in the dining room, which I was no longer invited to join. "You mentioned you preferred eating earlier," Veronica said when I brought it up. "We thought we were helping." The bills began arriving in my name again around month 8. Despite Keith's promise to cover utilities, I found myself paying for cable packages I did not want, internet speeds I did not need, and a lawn service that replaced the gentle gardener Daniel had used for years with an expensive company that ruined everything he had planted. "Oh, we thought you would want to contribute," Keith said. "You still own the house after all." That phrase, "still own the house," stuck with me like a splinter. The real heartbreak came with the photographs. After Daniel's passing, I spent weeks creating memory albums that documented our 46 years of marriage in meticulous detail. Our honeymoon in San Francisco, Veronica's birth, her first days of school, Daniel teaching her to ride a bike, and family vacations were all lovingly preserved. I kept them on the shelf in what used to be our bedroom, now occupied by Veronica and Keith. One afternoon, needing my blood pressure medication left on the nightstand, I knocked on the door, received no answer, and entered. The albums were gone. I found Veronica in the kitchen. "Honey, where are the photo albums? The ones from the bedroom shelf?" I asked. She did not even look up from her phone. "Oh, those. They were taking up too much space. I packed them in boxes in the attic." "The attic?" My voice cracked. "Those are my memories, my entire life with your father." "Mom, you're being dramatic. They're safe. You can look at them anytime you want." But I couldn't, as accessing the attic required a pull-down ladder I could no longer climb safely. She knew that. Keith knew that. Those albums might as well have been on the moon. "Could you bring them down for me?" I asked. "Sure, when I have time. I'm swamped this week." She never had time. Not that week, not the next, and not the month after that. My wedding photo disappeared from the hallway. "Ashley needed the frame for a school project," Veronica explained. The photo itself was nowhere to be found. Daniel's favorite armchair, the leather one he had saved for months to buy, was donated to Goodwill. "It was falling apart, Mom, an eyesore." It was not falling apart. It was broken in, comfortable, and faintly smelled of his aftershave. I had been sitting in it every morning with my coffee, feeling close to him. "You should have asked me," I whispered. "We're trying to modernize the space," Keith interjected. "You'll adjust." His mother's china cabinet, which she had carried from Vermont in 1945, was moved to the garage. Temporary, they promised. It remained there until water damage from a roof leak ruined half the pieces inside. "These things happen," Keith said with a shrug when I discovered the damage. "That's what insurance is for." Except he never filed a claim, and those irreplaceable family heirlooms ended up in the trash. I began to see what was happening. They were not merely taking space, they were erasing Daniel. They were erasing our history and transforming my home into theirs, piece by piece, memory by memory. I attempted to discuss my feelings with Veronica one evening when Keith was working late. "Honey, I'm feeling a bit displaced. This is still my home, and I would appreciate being consulted before things are changed or removed." Her expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. "Mom, we moved our entire lives here to take care of you. We gave up our home in Seattle. Keith took a pay cut. The least you can do is be flexible about furniture." "I never asked you to give anything up," I replied quietly. "No, you just guilted us with your loneliness," she snapped back. That hurt more than anything else she could have said. "My friends noticed my absence before I did." Carol Jennings, my best friend for 30 years, called one Tuesday morning. Pat, we missed you at book club again. That's 3 months in a row. Are you okay? Was I? I could not recall the last time I had left the house for something I wanted to do. Veronica needed me to watch the kids, I said, though I was not entirely sure that was true. The excuse had become automatic, every Tuesday for 3 months. Carol's skepticism was evident. Patricia, what's really going on? I wanted to share everything. How I had become invisible in my own home, how my family had book club nights, movie nights, and dinner parties to which I was not invited, and how I had once asked to join their game night only to have Veronica respond, "Mom, you wouldn't enjoy it. We play adult games, as if I had not been in it longer than she had been alive." But articulating it felt like admitting I had made a grave mistake, like confirming I had lost control of my own life. "I'm just tired lately," I lied. "I'll make the next one." I did not, for when I mentioned it to Veronica, she scheduled a dentist appointment for Brandon at the exact same time and asked me to drive him. "Keith and I both have important meetings," she explained. "You don't mind, do you?" What could I say? They were doing me a favor by living with me, or so I had been told repeatedly. My other outings gradually disappeared. My weekly volunteer shift at the library, where I had worked for 23 years before retiring, conflicted with Ashley's soccer games, which I was expected to attend, despite Veronica and Keith also being present. My monthly lunch with the ladies from church was deemed too far to drive at my age, with the implication that something could happen. I was 70 years old then, perfectly capable of driving 15 minutes to a restaurant. However, Keith had begun making comments about my reaction time, my vision, and my confusion over which pedal was which, a joke that was not funny because it was entirely fabricated. The walls were closing in, but so slowly that I barely noticed until I was already trapped. Then came the incident with my car. I had owned a 2015 Toyota Camry, which was reliable and paid off. One morning, I woke up to find it missing from the driveway. "Where's my car?" I asked, trying to keep panic from my voice. "Oh, Keith took it to the shop," Veronica said casually. "The check engine light was on." It was not. I had driven it just fine the day before. The car returned 2 days later with a list of necessary repairs totaling $3,800. Keith had already authorized the work. "You're fortunate we caught these issues," he said. "The mechanic said you were driving a death trap." I had had the car serviced 3 months earlier, and everything had been fine, but I paid the bill because what else could I do? 2 weeks later, Keith suggested I use their second car instead. "We hardly drive it, and this way you don't have to worry about maintenance." My car disappeared again, this time permanently. Months later, Veronica admitted, "We sold it. You weren't using it anyway." The money from the sale never reached me. The shift from uncomfortable to unbearable occurred over Thanksgiving 2023. I spent 3 days preparing Daniel's traditional feast: turkey with my mother's herb stuffing, cranberry sauce made from scratch, sweet potato casserole with pecan topping, and Daniel's favorite pumpkin pie. The kitchen smelled like every happy holiday we had ever celebrated. Veronica's in-laws, Keith's parents Robert and Diane, were visiting from California. I had met them twice before, at Brandon's graduation and Ashley's confirmation. They were pleasant enough people, though Diane had a way of looking at me that made me feel scrutinized. I set the dining room table with our good china, the pieces that had survived the garage's water damage, along with candles and fresh flowers from the garden. Daniel's mother's linen napkins were preserved for special occasions. Everyone gathered at 4. I had been cooking since dawn. "Dinner's ready," I announced, carrying the turkey to the table with pride. That was when Keith stood at the head of the table, Daniel's place, the spot he had occupied for 40 years during holiday meals, and raised his glass. "Before we eat, I want to thank Veronica for opening her home to family this year. Her home, not our home, not my home, but her home." I stood there, oven mitts still on my hands, watching everyone toast my daughter for hosting Thanksgiving in my house, serving food I had cooked. "Mom, sit down," Veronica said, gesturing to a chair at the far end of the table, not beside her, not in my usual spot next to where Daniel used to sit, but at the end, squeezed between Brandon and the wall. Robert began carving the turkey. Daniel's job, my job after he passed, but apparently now his job. Diane complimented Veronica on the beautiful table setting. Thank you, Veronica replied, not mentioning that I had done it. The dinner conversation flowed around me as if I were a piece of furniture. Keith discussed his latest case, Robert talked about their yacht club, and Diane mentioned their upcoming cruise to Alaska. You should join us, she suggested to Veronica and Keith. We'd love to have the whole family. Apparently, I was not included in the whole family. Veronica's eyes lit up. That sounds wonderful, but we couldn't leave Mom alone for 2 weeks. Oh, I'm sure she'd manage, Diane said, dismissively waving her hand. She's lived alone before. Actually, I've been thinking, Keith said, setting down his fork. Patricia, perhaps it's time we discuss some changes. The table fell silent, and everyone looked at me. Changes? I managed. You're getting older. This house is a lot for you to handle. Veronica and I have been carrying most of the responsibility, both financially and physically. It's becoming burdensome. Burdensome. I was a burden. We think it might be time to consider other living arrangements for you, Keith continued, his attorney voice smooth and practiced. Somewhere more suitable for your needs. There are excellent senior communities in the area. My hands began to tremble. You want me to move out of my house? It's not really about want, Veronica added quickly. It's about practicality, what's best for everyone. If you felt the same crushing betrayal and suffocating helplessness that I felt at that moment, please subscribe to this channel. Your support means everything and helps me share these stories that many of us endure in silence. Best for everyone, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Or best for you. Keith's expression hardened. I think we should discuss this privately, Veronica. Your mother is getting emotional. Getting emotional, as if I did not have every right to my emotions when being told to leave my own home. No, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. If you're going to discuss my future, you will do it with me present. Robert cleared his throat uncomfortably, and Diane suddenly became very interested in her sweet potatoes. The children had already disappeared to the living room, whether by design or chance. Mom, we've sacrificed a lot to be here, Veronica said. Keith's career took a hit with the transfer. We gave up our social circle, our community. We did this for you. I never asked you to, I reiterated, louder this time. You offered. You said you wanted to help, to be close. Not once did anyone mention that I would be expected to pay for that help by surrendering my home. Surrendering is a strong word, Keith interjected. We are talking about a natural transition. You would sell the house, split the proceeds, and use your share for a nice apartment or assisted living. I don't need assisted living. I'm 72, not 92. But you will eventually, Veronica pressed, and property values are excellent right now. If we wait too long, you might not get as much, and then where would that leave you? The logic seemed sound on the surface, but I heard what they were truly saying. We want our inheritance now. We are tired of waiting for you to die. This house is not for sale, I said quietly. Keith exchanged a look with Veronica that I could not quite interpret. Patricia, be reasonable. You cannot maintain this place alone. I am not alone. You are here, remember? Taking care of everything as you promised. That arrangement has become untenable, Keith said, now fully embodying the lawyer. The financial strain, the time commitment, it's affecting our quality of life. Then move out, I suggested simply. Go back to Seattle. Find your own place in Portland. I will manage just fine on my own. The silence that followed was frigid. After everything we've done, Veronica's voice rose. After we uprooted our lives, moved here to take care of you, and this is the thanks we get. What exactly have you done? The question escaped sharper than I intended, but 3 years of suppressed grievances surged forth. You have taken my bedroom, my furniture, my car. You have made me feel like a guest in my own home. You have isolated me from my friends and erased every trace of your father. What part of that was taking care of me? We've kept you safe, Veronica shouted. We've kept you fed and housed in my house. The words exploded from me. Fed with my Social Security and pension, housed in the home my husband and I worked our entire lives to pay for. Robert and Diane excused themselves so quickly they nearly knocked over their chairs. The front door closed moments later. Keith stood slowly, deliberately. I think we all need to cool down. But Patricia, this conversation is not over. We will be making some decisions in the coming weeks. For everyone's sake, I hope you will be cooperative. It was a threat wrapped in politeness. The week after Thanksgiving, the atmosphere in the house dropped to match the weather outside. Veronica stopped speaking to me except when necessary, while Keith acted as if I did not exist. The children, sensing the tension, avoided me entirely. I spent most of my time in the small guest room that had become my prison, researching senior living facilities online to understand what they were proposing. The costs were staggering: $3,000 to $5,000 monthly for basic apartments, more for any care services. My Social Security and pension totaled $4,200 a month. After paying for a senior apartment, I would have almost nothing left. Meanwhile, my house, which I owned free and clear, was worth approximately $700,000 in Portland's market. If I sold it and split the proceeds, they would get $350,000, and I would receive $350,000, which I would pour into senior living, burning through it in perhaps 6 years. Then what? I would be broke and dependent, exactly where they wanted me. I was contemplating this while staring at my laptop screen when I overheard voices from downstairs. Keith's office door was open, a rarity as he typically kept it locked, and he was on a conference call. The property is solely in her name, that's the complication. But given her age and increasing confusion, we might have grounds for conservatorship. My blood turned to ice. She has shown poor judgment with finances, he continued. I nearly laughed at his audacity. I had never had poor judgment with finances. I had saved enough to own this house outright and maintain a comfortable retirement. We will need a medical evaluation, but I am confident we could demonstrate diminished capacity. Conservatorship. They were planning to have me declared incompetent. I had read about family members taking legal control of an elderly person's finances and decisions. It happened all the time, often with good intentions, but sometimes, as in this case, it was financial abuse masked as concern. They would control my assets. They could sell my house without my consent and dictate where I lived and how my money was spent. I would be rendered a legal child, powerless in every way that mattered. I grabbed my purse and coat and left the house as quietly as possible. Carol answered her door within seconds of my knock. "Pat, I was just thinking about you. Good Lord, what's wrong?" Everything spilled out. 3 years of humiliation, isolation, and manipulation, the Thanksgiving ultimatum, the conservatorship plan I had overheard. She listened without interrupting, her expression darkening with each revelation. "They are trying to steal your house," she stated flatly when I finished. "They are my family," I protested weakly, though I no longer believed it myself. "No, honey, family does not do this. Thieves do this. Sophisticated, patient thieves, but thieves nonetheless." She made coffee, and we sat at her kitchen table, the same table where we had shared countless conversations over the years. "What are my options?" I asked. "Well, you could wait for them to file for conservatorship and fight it, but that's expensive, stressful, and not guaranteed. Or," she paused, considering, "you could beat them at their own game." "How?" "You own the house. You can evict them. You can sell it yourself. You can take back control before they take it from you." Could I? After everything, did I have the strength? Carol reached across the table and gripped my hand. "Patricia Whitmore, I've known you for 30 years. You raised a daughter alone while Daniel worked double shifts. You beat breast cancer in your 50s. You nursed your husband through his final heart attack, staying strong until the very end. You are not powerless." Her words ignited something within me that I thought had died. I did not return to the house that night. Carol insisted I stay with her, and I was grateful. For the first time in 3 years, I slept soundly. The next morning, I called Margaret Chen, an attorney I had known from my library volunteer work. She had helped me with Daniel's estate and had always been direct and trustworthy. "Patricia, tell me everything," she said when I arrived at her office. I did, compressing 3 years into 30 minutes of documentation. I had started keeping emails, texts, bills I had paid despite Keith's promises, the repair invoice for my car, everything I could gather. Margaret's jaw tightened as she reviewed the materials. "This is financial elder abuse. Textbook case." Can they really obtain conservatorship? I inquired. They can try, but you are clearly competent in managing your own affairs. There are no cognitive issues. Any judge would see through it, especially with this documentation of their financial manipulation. She tapped the stack of papers. However, the process would be hell for you, expensive, invasive, and stressful. It's better to make it unnecessary. How? You evict them. A formal, legal eviction. They are month to month occupants in your home. You never signed a lease with them, right? Right, they just moved in. Then you give them 60 days' notice to vacate. Oregon law is clear. You don't need cause. It's your property. My hands trembled. They will fight it. They will make it ugly. Probably, but the law is on your side. And Patricia, there's something else you should consider. She leaned forward. Sell the house, not to split with them. They have no legal claim to it. Sell it for yourself. Take the money, buy something smaller that is truly yours, and live the rest of your life free from their manipulation. But Veronica always expected. Expected what? To inherit your house? Patricia, inheritance is a gift, not a right. And gifts go to people who have earned them through love and respect, not manipulation and abuse. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Think about it, Margaret said. In the meantime, let me draft the eviction notice, 60 days from when we serve it. They are out. What you do with the house after that is entirely up to you. I contemplated it for approximately 10 seconds. Draft it, I instructed. The eviction notice was served by a process server on December 15, 2023. I was not present when it occurred. Margaret had advised I stay with Carol for safety and sanity, but Carol's son Tom, who lived nearby, reported the aftermath. Apparently, Keith answered the door, read the notice, and turned a shade of purple that Tom described as stroke-inducing. Veronica's scream could be heard from the street. My phone exploded with calls and texts that I did not answer. Margaret had been clear, no contact. Everything goes through me now. Don't give them any ammunition. The voicemails began angry and grew desperate. How could you do this to us? We gave up everything for you. You're making a huge mistake. Mom, please let's talk about this. That last one almost broke me. But then I remembered Keith's voice on that conference call discussing my diminished capacity, and my resolve solidified. They had 60 days. I began making other plans. In January, while Veronica and Keith scrambled to find new housing, I listed the house with a real estate agent that Margaret recommended. The market was competitive. We received 3 offers within a week, all above asking price. I accepted the highest, $745,000. Veronica discovered this through the lockbox on the front door. She called me directly, bypassing Margaret's instructions. Mom, please, can we just talk face to face? Against my better judgment and Margaret's advice, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked terrible, thinner, dark circles under her eyes, and unwashed hair. Part of me, the mother part that never fully dies, wanted to comfort her. Mom, I'm sorry, she began, tears flowing immediately. We handled everything wrong. Keith pushed too hard, too fast. I should have protected you instead of going along with him. Yes, you should have. Please don't sell the house. We will move out. We will give you space. We will do whatever you want. Just don't sell it. That house is my inheritance. It's supposed to be Brandon and Ashley's future. It's my house, Veronica, not your inheritance. Mine. But Dad would want. Don't, I interrupted, my voice cracking. Don't you dare tell me what your father would want. Daniel would be horrified by what you have done. He worked himself to exhaustion to give you opportunities, and this is how you honor him? By trying to steal from his widow. We weren't stealing. We were trying to help manage. You were trying to manage me out of my own life. I slammed my coffee cup down, sloshing liquid onto the table. You took my bedroom, my furniture, my car, my memories of your father. You isolated me from my friends. You made me feel like a burden in my own home. And then you planned to have me declared incompetent so you could take everything legally. Her face turned white. You heard that? I heard it, Keith discussing conservatorship as if I were already dead. Mom, that wasn't. He was just exploring options to steal my autonomy and my assets. Don't pretty it up, Veronica. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. What do you want from me? What can I do to fix this? Nothing. There is nothing you can do. The house sells in March. You have until February 14th to be out. Where will we go? We can't afford Portland rent and save for a down payment. You're a lawyer's wife with a trust fund from Keith's parents. You'll figure it out. That trust is for the kids' college. Then I guess you will have to make the same sacrifices your father and I made. Get a second job. Cut expenses. Be creative. I stood to leave. You wanted to be adults making adult decisions about my life. Now make some about your own. Mom, please. I turned back. The furniture you put in storage, Daniel's chair you donated, my wedding photo you lost. I want a detailed accounting of every single item. Margaret will be in touch about restitution. You're suing us. I'm getting back what you stole. There's a difference. I walked out of that coffee shop and did not look back. The house closed on March 22nd, 2024, for $745,000. After agent fees and closing costs, I received just over $700,000, more money than I had ever imagined having at once. Veronica, Keith, and the children moved to a rental house in Beaverton in mid-February, taking only what was legally theirs. Everything they had stored or donated without permission was itemized by Margaret, and I received a settlement check for $18,000 covering the value of Daniel's furniture, my grandmother's damaged china, and other items. It was not about the money. It was about acknowledgement, about them admitting legally and financially that they had taken what was not theirs. I purchased a beautiful 2-bedroom cottage in Ashland, Oregon. It was smaller and manageable, with a garden I could tend and a front porch perfect for morning coffee. It cost $300,000, leaving me with $400,000 invested conservatively for the future. For the first time in years, I felt secure, safe, and free. Carol assisted me with the move, along with several friends from book club with whom I had reconnected. We hung Daniel's portrait in the living room prominently, and I set up my grandmother's rocking chair, which I had bought back from the second-hand store for $200 by the window. Every photograph I had rescued from that attic, every memory they had attempted to bury, found a place in my new home. Brandon called me once briefly. "Grandma, I don't understand why you did this." "Maybe someday you will," I replied, "when you're older and someone you love treats you like an inconvenience instead of a person." Ashley sent a letter, which I have not opened yet. Perhaps I will someday, perhaps I will not. As for Veronica and Keith, there has been silence, complete silence. And you know what? I am perfectly fine with that. I am 73 now. My days are full again. Volunteering at the Ashland Library, attending theater performances, hosting book club at my cottage, and tending my garden where I have planted roses in Daniel's memory. I occasionally reflect on what I lost. My relationship with my daughter, the grandchildren I adore but cannot have in my life, the family I envisioned in my old age. Yet, I also think about what I gained, my dignity, my autonomy, my peace. There is no perfect ending here. I did not reconcile with Veronica in a tearful reunion. I did not regain my family. Some betrayals cut too deep for simple forgiveness. What I obtained was something perhaps even more valuable. I got myself back. To anyone watching who is in a similar situation, feeling small in their own life, being manipulated by family members who view inheritance as entitlement, please know this: you deserve respect. You deserve dignity, and you deserve to live your remaining years on your terms, not theirs. Inheritance is earned through love, not demanded through manipulation. I am Patricia Whitmore. I am 73 years old, and I sold the house they thought they would inherit. I have never slept better. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video with love and respect.